This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Susie Guerin. Brought to you by
TheStreet.com, interactive financial multimedia tools for an ever-changing financial world. Our dividend stock advisor guides and helps generate income during a period of low interest rates. Real Money helps you think through ideas for investing and trading stocks. Action Alerts Plus is a charitable trust portfolio that provides trade-by-trade strategies. Online, mobile, social media. We are TheStreet.com.
3 CEOs making big headlines. First, Yahoo's Marissa Mayer. She just spent over $1 billion to buy a blog site. But will the move pay off for shareholders banking on a turnaround?
Second, J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon. Tomorrow is Judgment Day as shareholders vote on whether he should keep the dual jobs as chairman and CEO.
And Apple's Tim Cook. He'll be on Capitol Hill tomorrow arguing for an overhaul to the tax code and facing tough questions about his big pile of overseas cash. We have all that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Monday, May 20th.
And good evening, everyone. Our top story tonight is Yahoo, the granddaddy of internet search, older if not bigger than Google, is paying more than $1 billion for Tumblr, a website that brings thousands of blogs and hundreds of millions of young users together every month. And those younger eyeballs, along with the money they could bring but haven't yet, may be what Yahoo's CEO Marissa Mayer is really after. John Ford has more now on Yahoo's big bet on Tumblr.
David Karp, he's 26, a high school dropout, and now he's mega rich. That's because Karp is founder of Tumblr, the blogging site Yahoo just bought for $1.1 billion in cash. This isn't a get-rich-quick scenario. Karp has been working on Tumblr for 6 years, redefining the blog platform for the age of smartphones and instant sharing.
And now the content's always updating and refreshing.
Since she arrived 10 months ago, Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer has been trying to transform the company from a flat-footed relic of the early web into a must-use service for everyone. To succeed, she's going to have to figure out what younger users are doing with their smartphones and tablets, and more important, what they'll want to do next. Tumblr, with its massive young audience of more than 300 million monthly visitors worldwide, will certainly help. And on its own, Tumblr's already growing. 11 months ago, it cracked ComScore's list of top websites at number 47. Since then, it's climbed to number 41. But is Yahoo paying too much?
I mean, I'd say, hey, YouTube looked expensive at $1.6 billion in 2005. This year, YouTube is going to do $4 billion in revenues. I think almost $1 billion in operating income for Google. A lot of people screamed that deal didn't work out for a long time, and it looks great today. I think Tumblr is a special property, and I think it will take years for it to play out. But as an investor, I'd rather have a stake in that property right here.
One of the things Mayer does as well as anyone is figure out how to translate data into better online software and services. Until now, Yahoo's been flying blind, relatively speaking, when creating products for mobile and young people. Now, with Tumblr's data, Yahoo is instantly smarter, even if it takes a long time to make money off of Tumblr directly. Just as significant in all this, David Karp, a freakishly smart young entrepreneur, chose Yahoo. It's arguably Mayer's biggest vote of confidence yet from a savvy techie who had a lot of options. For Nightly Business Report, I'm John Fort.
And a disclosure to share with you. CNBC, which of course produces Nightly Business Report, and Yahoo have a business alliance to share and co-produce editorial content.
On Capitol Hill tomorrow, Apple and its billions of dollars in corporate cash stashed overseas will be in the spotlight. Apple CEO Tim Cook will be grilled by Senate lawmakers about that and avoiding paying U.S. taxes on those earnings. Today, we got an early look at what Apple will tell the Senate panel about keeping funds offshore and why the whole corporate tax system needs an overhaul. Eamon Javers has been following the story and joins us now from Washington. So, Eamon, what do you think is going to be the pitch from Apple's Tim Cook?
Well, I think Tim Cook is going to have to defend himself against a report that the Senate Select Committee on Investigations just put out within this evening. And the report is pretty critical of the way Apple structures itself and sets up its corporate tax structure overseas. Senator Carl Levin just this evening called it the holy grail of tax avoidance, because what he says Apple did here is set up 3 sub-corporations that weren't tax residents of the company that they were allegedly registered in, which was Ireland. They weren't tax residents residents of the United States. In fact, these corporations, the subcommittee says, weren't tax residents of any country in the world. They were companies without a state, so to speak. Now, he was joined at the podium by Senator John McCain, a Republican, making this a bipartisan event this evening. And take a listen to what McCain had to say.
Apple executives like to boast that their company is the highest corporate taxpayer in the U.S. But what they often leave out is the second part of the story, and that is that Apple is one of the largest corporate tax avoiders. It's unacceptable that Apple, and they're not the only ones, but they're the most egregious offender.
Now, Apple is going to come into this environment tomorrow. They're going to say that they don't use tax gimmicks, that everything they did was perfectly legal in this case. And they're also going to highlight the enormous amount of money that they do pay in U.S. taxes, up to $6 billion last year. They're estimating that this year they'll pay $7 billion. And they're going to say that the particular entity that the subcommittee is focused on here, which is based in Ireland but not a tax resident of any country, they're going to say that that does not reduce their tax liability in any way.
So they're going to maintain that nothing they did is illegal. Is what they did something that, as Senator McCain just pointed out, that lots of other companies do as well?
Well, it's something that the committee says that they've never seen before. They've done a lot of these investigations into HP and Microsoft and other companies. They haven't seen this kind of company without a country status ever before in their investigations. They say they've talked to a lot of people who are experts in tax law who've never seen it either. So this one might be a first, Tyler.
All right, Eamon Javers reporting from Washington. Thanks so much, Eamon.
And that third CEO we talked about at the top of the program tonight, J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon, faces a very tough test tomorrow at the bank's annual meeting. There, the results will be announced of a non-binding shareholder vote on whether to split the roles of chairman and CEO, which Dimon holds. A similar vote at last year's meeting got 40% approval. And ahead of that vote today, J.P. Morgan shares were basically unchanged.
Looking at the rest of what was going on Wall Street today, the major averages edged a bit lower as investors had no economic reports or major earnings to mull over, and only a whole lot of speculation about when the Federal Reserve will begin easing back on billions of dollars in asset purchases. By the closing bell, the Dow was down by 19 points, the Nasdaq lost 2, the S&P off a point. A different story for the Russell 2000. This index of small companies crossed the 1,000 level for the first time ever. Today, it's up 18% so far this year, better than the major indexes. And thanks to some short covering and bargain hunting, there was a huge turnaround in some hot commodities today. The price of silver plunged to a 2.5-year low intraday before bouncing back and ending the session 23 cents higher. Gold started lower and ended the day more than $19 higher to $1,384.
And we begin tonight's market focus with a $5 billion deal. The generic drug maker Actavis is buying Warner Chilcott, a specialty pharmaceutical company. Actavis says the purchase will expand its portfolio of drugs, increase its profits. That's why you do these deals, I guess. This is the second major acquisition in the past 2 years, which competes against larger companies like Teva Pharmaceuticals and Mylan. Warner Chilcott closed at $19.60, a gain of 2%. Actavis rose more than 1% to a new high, $127.15.
Well, here's one way to win approval of a pending deal. Offer to pay special dividends. Shareholders of Plains Exploration today approved the $6 billion takeover by Freeport-McMoRan after both companies sweetened the deal with 2 special dividends. The takeover is expected to close at the end of the month. So looking at the stocks, Freeport-McMoRan rose slightly to $32.88, and Plains Exploration surged almost 7.5% to $48.94.
And also in the natural resources business, Chesapeake Energy has a new CEO, and he's a top executive from a rival firm. Anadarko Petroleum's Robert Lawler will fill the post vacated by co-founder and former CEO Aubrey McClendon. Lawler inherits a company with $13 billion in debt and the challenge of low natural gas prices. Chesapeake closed higher, though, by more than 2% today to $20.80. Well, that long winter translated into a good quarter for Campbell's Soup. Sales were up, profits were higher, and the company is forecasting stronger earnings for the full year. Campbell's also attributing the gains to new products, but did report weak results in its V8 juice business, which is struggling from increased competition. Campbell's Soup down on the day about 4% to $45.78.
And WebSense is going private. This maker of software to protect companies against cyber attacks and data theft has agreed to be acquired by Vista Equity Partners at a 29% premium over Friday's closing price. While investors snapped up the shares today, WebSense added $5.53 to close at $24.76.
And still ahead, some call SAC Capital's Stephen Cohen one of the most successful traders of his time. So, why does he always seem to be in the government's crosshairs? First, though, a look at a handful of stocks that closed today at all-time highs. The billionaire hedge fund manager Stephen A. Cohen of SAC Capital Advisors, one of Wall Street's most successful players with roughly $15 billion under management. He may also be facing criminal charges in a wide-ranging government investigation into his firm. Kate Kelly has been following the story for us. So, Kate, who is Steve Cohen and why does he get so much attention?
Well, as you just mentioned, Tyler, he's one of the most successful hedge fund managers really in the world. He manages $15 billion. Also, by head count, his hedge fund is one of the largest out there. It employs more than 1,000 people based in Stamford, Connecticut. And finally, because of the amount of money they manage and their style of trading, which is rapid trades in and out of stocks and also going short stocks, they're accounting for a major percentage of the market volume every day. Now, it may only be 1 or 2% on a given day, but of the entire market volume, that's a significant chunk.
All right, and so why does this matter for individual investors? Many of the people at home who are watching this, why should they care about what happens to Stephen Cohen and his firm?
You know, I think why it matters to an individual investor is a little bit more symbolic, Susie, than perhaps literal. I think essentially there's a feeling out there that the class divisions are widening, that hedge funds like SAC get away with all sorts of illicit behavior, and at the very least enjoy advantages that normal folks don't, whether it be a more competitive tax rate on their investment gains and advantages like that. Although hedge funds were not considered to be accountable for the financial crisis, I do think there's a perception that they might be cowboys, that they might be taking risks that others can't or shouldn't. And in this case, the government is reining in on what they believe to be a pattern of illegal activity in terms of insider trading.
Haven't there been multiple investigations of Cohen's firm? What have they yielded and what's different now?
There have been multiple investigations over the years. You're absolutely right, Tyler. This particular set of cases has been going on since at least 2009 and follows on the heels of another series of cases with the Galleon hedge fund. You may remember the name Raj Rajaratnam being the kingpin of that. So we've had a number of years of investigations of 9 current and former SAC employees having been implicated in terms of allegation of insider trading. 4 of them have pled guilty, 2 have settled, 1 was found guilty, and 2 are still awaiting trial. And Steve Cohen himself has been implicated. He's one of those 9 as part of charges against a former trader in 2 pharma stocks.
Okay, we're going to keep watching this unfolding. Thanks so much, Kate.
Thank you.
Kate Kelly reporting for us. Well, Steve Cohen knew he was being investigated by the feds, but that's not always the case. Take the recent audits by the Internal Revenue Service that targeted conservative-sounding groups for extra scrutiny. Now many taxpayers are worrying about what flags they may be sending to auditors. Jackie DeAngelis has more on how you may be a target for the IRS and not even know it.
If you're one of the 1 in 100 Americans who's been audited, you know it can be painful. But what you don't know is that the IRS is using new tactics to zone in on tax evasion.
I think that, everyone is concerned about the IRS.
I'm honest about everything, so I don't worry about it too much.
The good news is that there are some things you can avoid doing so you don't become a statistic. First, don't go bragging on social media about non-payment or underpayment of taxes. Sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many people do it. Second, if you're buying or selling something online, don't exaggerate and declare a different value on your tax return. They could easily find the discrepancy. Consider information posted online to be public. There's no reason to think that the IRS isn't poking around on the web. This was always known to people in the tax community that the IRS, like everybody else in the 21st century, was monitoring online, says Edward Zielinski, a law professor at Cardozo Law School. Third, don't. Do not claim non-cash deductions on your tax return that aren't reasonable. Things like cars and clothes. If the amounts seem too high, the IRS will take notice.
And lastly, for those of you who are self-employed or work in cash businesses, know that the IRS is likely watching you a little more carefully. Don't file information that's not going to match up with what others file about you. Yes, they do cross-check.
Keep all the receipts and just don't overdo it. I mean, don't try to make huge deductions, and because it's going to trigger an audit.
The IRS's new practices are raising some eyebrows, especially in light of its most recent scandal over targeting conservative groups with excessive scrutiny. Zielinski says that the agency is so secretive about what is going on that it really erodes public confidence. Meantime, wealthy taxpayers are also a target. That's because the amount recovered by the IRS is greater if any issues are found. According to IRS data, taxpayers making $1 million or more are 12 times more likely than the rest of the general population to face an audit. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Jackie DeAngelis.
No matter what you're paying in taxes or to fill up your tank, a healthy dose of consumer spending has played a big role in the economic recovery. But a new survey says those free spending ways may be coming to an end. Sharon Epperson has more on the survey and why consumers may be cutting back on spending.
High gasoline prices typically force many Americans to cut back on spending, but lower gas prices aren't leading to much more spending. According to AAA, gasoline prices have risen in the past month to $3.65 a gallon for the national average. But they're lower than a year ago and about 14 cents below this year's peak. Despite the slide in gasoline prices in the first half of 2013, 80% of Americans have not increased their discretionary spending, according to a new Bankrate survey. But last spring, when gasoline prices were more than a nickel higher on average, more than half of those surveyed by Bankrate said that they had decreased their non-essential spending. Now that gasoline prices are lower, they haven't ramped back up those purchases. The problem? Bankrate analyst Greg McBride says consumers just don't have spare cash to throw around.
Household budgets are still very tight, and so even though we've seen a drop in gasoline prices here in 2013, it's not something that's translated into additional consumer spending. Only about 1 in 6 Americans has actually increased their spending due to the decline in gasoline prices.
The payroll tax increase, 2 percentage points higher than last year, has hit many consumers hard.
I think it's had a pretty large impact in 2013. You can look at the modest decreases in gasoline prices, but they don't really make up for as much as folks who live paycheck to paycheck were damaged by the payroll tax.
The tax hike has impacted their spending and savings. The Bankrate survey found about a third of consumers feel less comfortable about their savings today than they did a year ago.
When gas prices pull back, particularly at a time when budgets are tight and gas prices are still relatively high, it's added very little oomph to the economic recovery.
Consumers are paying about $50 million less per day for gasoline than they did a year ago. But they're not spending that money.
Consumers are very, very cynical about gasoline prices. They've heard that the U.S. is in the middle of an energy boom with more crude oil production than we've seen since 1992. A lot of refining, and yet the prices they're paying are about what they paid in the last 2 summers.
Despite the slide in gas prices over the past 3 months, consumers are still cutting back, driving less and taking shorter trips, fearful of overspending. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Sharon Epperson in New York.
For savers, some new concerns about annuities. This is a popular savings plan for retirement. Now that some private equity firms are acquiring or becoming involved in the annuity business, New York regulators are examining whether they are taking too many risks with investors' money. The New York Department of Financial Services has sent subpoenas to some big-name financial companies. Mary Thompson is following the story for us, and she joins us now. You know, Mary, this is such an important issue for many of our viewers and investors across the board. So what are the regulators investigating?
The probe right now is informational, essentially. What they're concerned about is that you have private equity firms, which tend to have a short-term focus on their investment, 3 to 5 years, buying into these annuity businesses, which of course are geared toward the longer-term investor. So it's informational. Basically, what the office wants to see is what kind of strategy the private equity firms have with these annuity businesses, and are they aligned with the strategies, with the needs of the annuity buyer.
Should I be worried if my annuity is managed or owned by a private equity company?
Well, some private equity firms have been in this business for some time and have done a very good job. Guggenheim, for example. The reason they're looking at it now is it used to be about 7% of the annuity business was held by private equity. It's moved up to about 30%, according to statistics from the New York Department of Financial Services. So because of the increased interest, they want to get ahead of it. The regulators want to make sure that if rules and new guidelines need to be put in place, they're there so someone who has an annuity isn't hurt.
All right, so let's say you have an annuity and you're getting your monthly statements from, let's say, Guggenheim. How do you know if a private equity firm is involved in it now?
Well, probably the best thing would be to call the company itself and ask what the ownership structure is. That's probably what you have to do. But some people, well, they may not know because it won't be apparent just from your statement. So you have to do a little research yourself.
All right, thank you so much, Mary Thompson.
All righty. Coming up, I'm going to read here. Coming up, we'll take you on board the first Dreamliner flight since the jet was grounded 4 months ago. But first, a look at how some widely held stocks closed today.
It's been a devastating week for tornadoes in the nation's midsection, and late today, a massive mile-wide tornado struck just outside of Oklahoma City. And you can see it in this video. Countless flattened homes and businesses, cars and trucks tossed around and left in piles on the sides of roads. Tornado watches and warnings have been extended through 10 o'clock tonight, Central Time, in Oklahoma and parts of Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas.
Really, really major devastation in those parts south of Oklahoma City. Well, it has been a long and costly 4 months for Boeing since its signature 787 Dreamliners were grounded worldwide after smoke conditions were found in 2 aircraft. Since then, a faulty battery system has been diagnosed and fixed, and the Dreamliner has been cleared to fly again. And today, United Airlines put one back in service. Phil LeBeau was on board this second inaugural flight and tells us why there's a lot riding on the return of the Dreamliner.
A low-key send-off for the return of the Dreamliner with United Airlines.
We are delighted to have the 787 back in service. It's a terrific airplane. Our customers love it. And we're very pleased to have it back up.
United putting the 787 back in the air caps a 4-month PR and financial headache for the airline. Being unable to fly its 6 Dreamliners for 123 days cost United millions of dollars.
We've waited a long time to get it back up. We're pleased to have it up. And it's important for us because we have a lot of new routes that we're going to be flying, either existing routes or new routes with this airplane.
Investigators still don't know the root cause of 2 Dreamliner fires last January, but they were definitely in the lithium-ion battery packs, which prompted a redesign by Boeing. It includes more space between the battery cells that can run hot, putting the unit in a fireproof steel case, and running ventilation outside the 787, just in case the new battery system catches fire.
We are confident in the safety of this airplane. Safety means everything to us. It's in our DNA. It's why we get up in the morning.
Boeing may be confident in the redesigned Dreamliner, but what about passengers? Did they think twice before taking this flight?
No hesitation at all. I thought it would be actually really safe because they'd be really careful.
I'm pretty confident that they've had an opportunity now to work out some of those kinks, so I feel pretty safe and secure on the flight.
Boeing does such a great job with their airplanes. I know that they had a little problem there, but they got it fixed. I'm very confident in what they've done. So I am very happy to be on this plane.
No one has died on a 787. No one's been injured seriously on a 787. The problems are serious. They've been addressed, and I think that the 787 will go on and prove itself to be a very, very successful airplane.
United believes that over time, the Dreamliner grounding and its battery problems will be forgotten. And eventually, the 787 will pay off flying new routes to new destinations. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
And according to Boeing, 45 of the 50 Dreamliners originally grounded have had new battery systems installed.
And finally tonight, someone in the small town of Zephyr Hills, Florida, has a big secret, and it's got nothing to do with the spring water that's bottled there. It's where the one winning ticket was sold in Saturday's $590 million Powerball lottery drawing, the largest jackpot in U.S. history. The lucky ticket was bought at a Publix grocery store, and so far the winner has not come forward. And if that winner is smart, he or she is probably lining up a lawyer, a financial planner, and an accountant right about now. And Tyler, I hope that that person is planning to be a regular viewer of Nightly Business Report to get some good financial advice.
I offered to underwrite the whole program if I won, but so maybe we can get in touch with this individual when he or she comes out of from under their rock.
Maybe tomorrow. Well, that's Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Susie Garrett. Thanks so much for watching.
And thanks from me as well. I'm Tyler Matheson. Have a great evening, everybody. We hope to see you right back here tomorrow night.
Nightly Business Report has been brought to you by
TheStreet.com, interactive financial multimedia tools for an ever-changing financial world. Our dividend stock advisor guides and helps generate income during a period of low interest rates. Options Profits helps educate beginning and seasoned options traders. Action Alerts Plus is a charitable trust portfolio that provides trade-by-trade strategies. Online, mobile, social media. We are TheStreet.com.
I'm Susie Garrett with a Nightly Business Report news brief. Yahoo is buying online blogging forum Tumblr for more than $1 billion, hoping to access its younger computer users. Generic drug maker Actavis is buying specialty pharmaceutical maker Warner Chilcott for $5 billion. No records on Wall Street today. The Dow fell 19 points. The Nasdaq was down 2. The S&P 500 ended 1 point lower. A new survey of economists says consumer spending is likely to pick up this year, but government spending will drop sharply. United Continental resumed flights of the grounded Boeing 787 Dreamliner today after a faulty battery system was fixed. And no one's come forward yet with the single winning ticket for Saturday's record $590 million Powerball lottery bought in Zephyr Hills, Florida. Be sure to tune in to Nightly Business Report right here on your public television station.